Sit back, relax, and welcome to Reading Hours. Today's book is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Please let us know in the comments from where you are watching, or if there is a book you want us to summarize in future. As the 50th annual Hunger Games approaches, the districts of Panem are gripped by an intensified fear. This year marks the second quarter quell, a special iteration of the games occurring every 25 years, each with its own brutal twist. In this quell, the capital has decreed that twice the usual number of tributes will be reaped, meaning 4 children from each district will be sent into the arena. In District 12, a coal mining district known for its poverty and desolation, the atmosphere is thick with dread. Families whisper anxiously, and the usual hardships of life are overshadowed by the looming reaping day. Hamish Abernathy, a 16-year-old resident of the Seam, the poorest area of District 12, awakens on the morning of the reaping, which also happens to be his birthday. His younger brother, Sid, excitedly wishes him a happy birthday, but the joy is muted by the day's grim prospects. Hamish's mother, a resilient woman hardened by years of struggle after losing her husband to a mining accident, is already at work, taking in laundry to make ends meet. The family's existence is a testament to the harsh realities of life in the districts, where every day is a battle for survival. Despite the oppressive atmosphere, Hamish finds solace in the woods beyond the district's fences, a forbidden area where he often hunts and forages to supplement his family's meager rations. His skill with a knife and his keen instincts have made him adept at navigating this perilous terrain. And these excursions offer him a brief respite from the harshness of his daily life. He also cherishes his time with Lenore Dove, a girl from the Seam with whom he shares a deep bond. Their relationship is a rare beacon of light in Hamish's world, providing him with moments of genuine happiness amidst the prevailing gloom. As the sun climbs higher, the time for the reaping ceremony approaches. The entire district gathers in the square, a ritual that has become a macabre tradition. The capital's representative, with their flamboyant attire and affected demeanor, stands ready to draw the names. The tension is palpable as the first name is called, Macely Donner, a girl from the merchant class, known to Hamish as a friendly acquaintance. The second name follows, Levi Cartwright, a boy from the Seam, quiet and unassuming. The third name, Hamish Abernathy. A collective gasp ripples through the crowd. Hamish feels a cold numbness wash over him as he makes his way to the stage, his mind struggling to process the reality of his selection. The final name is drawn, Maris Bingley, a girl from the merchant sector, known for her haughty demeanor and privileged upbringing. The 4 tributes stand before the district, a stark representation of the capital's cruelty. Hamish steals a glance at his family, seeing the anguish etched on their faces. He locks eyes with Lenore, whose expression mirrors his own despair. The weight of the moment presses down on him, but beneath the fear, a spark of defiance ignites. The tributes are whisked away to the Justice Building, where they are given a brief window to say their goodbyes. Hamish's mother and brother embrace him tightly, their tears silent but their sorrow deafening. Lenore is the last to see him, and their farewell is a mixture of unspoken words and lingering touches. She presses a token into his hand, a small carved piece of coal, a symbol of their shared origins and her hope for his return. As the tributes are transported to the capital, Haymitch observes his companions. Maisily, with her determined expression, seems to be steeling herself for the trials ahead. Levy appears withdrawn, his eyes reflecting a deep-seated fear. Maris, on the other hand, maintains an air of disdain, as if refusing to acknowledge the gravity of their situation. Haymitch contemplates the irony of their predicament. 4 youths from disparate backgrounds, now united by the capital's sadistic game. Upon arrival at the capital, the tributes are overwhelmed by the city's opulence and the grotesque flamboyance of its citizens. They are assigned a team of stylists and mentors, individuals tasked with preparing them for the spectacle to come. Haymitch's mentor, a former victor named Althea, advises him on the importance of making an impression to garner sponsors, an aspect of the games that can mean the difference between life and death. As the days progress, the tributes undergo training, honing their skills and assessing their competitors. Haymitch's proficiency with a knife and his resourcefulness in the wild become evident, earning him a degree of respect from the trainers. He forms a tentative alliance with Maisily, recognizing in her a kindred spirit. Their shared background from District 12 fosters a sense of camaraderie, a fragile bond in the face of the impending ordeal. The capital's media machinery goes into overdrive, turning the tributes into overnight celebrities. Interviews are conducted, and personal stories are spun into narratives designed to captivate the audience. Haymitch is acutely aware of the performative nature of these proceedings, understanding that the persona he projects could influence his survival. He plays along, masking his contempt with a veneer of charm, all the while seething at the manipulation. The night before the games, the tributes are paraded before the capital in a grand ceremony. Dressed in elaborate costumes that pay homage to their district's coal mining heritage, Haymitch and his fellow District 12 tributes make a striking impression. The spectacle is met with rapturous applause, a stark contrast to the grim reality that awaits them. The morning of the Hunger Games arrives like a slow-moving nightmare, stretching the final hours before the inevitable bloodshed begins. Haymitch Abernathy wakes in his room in the capital's training center, staring at the ceiling, his mind a tangled mess of dread and forced readiness. He listens to the muffled sounds beyond his door, capital attendants preparing the tributes for their final moments of luxury. The whispers of mentors and stylists exchanging last-minute strategies. The air carries the scent of perfumed oils and the faint metallic tinge of sterilized air, a stark contrast to the cold, dusted mornings of District 12. Breakfast is served in a grand dining hall where the tributes eat their last meal before entering the arena. The table overflows with an excessive variety of foods, sugar-dusted pastries, roasted meats, and exotic fruits Haymitch has never seen before. He forces himself to eat, knowing he'll need his strength, though his stomach churns at the thought of what's to come. Across from him, Maisily Donner picks at her food with nervous energy, her usual composed demeanor cracking under the weight of anticipation. Levy Cartwright, another tribute from District 12, barely touches his meal, his eyes unfocused as he stares at his plate. Maris Bingley, the privileged merchant girl, eats daintily, as though she's at a social event rather than on the precipice of death. Their mentor, Althea, a former victor from a bygone era, moves among them, offering quiet words of advice. Stay alive. That's That's your priority. Run from the cornucopia if you must, unless you're certain you can grab something without dying for it. Her gaze lingers on Haymitch. Don't get distracted by alliances. They don't last. He understands what she's really saying. Don't trust anyone. After breakfast, they are led one by one to the final preparations before transport to the arena. Haymitch stands in the silent steel elevator, descending alone toward the underground launch room. His stylist, Portia, is already waiting for him, her usual capital cheerfulness subdued. She checks his appearance one last time, ensuring his uniform fits perfectly. The outfits are identical for all tributes: a deep brown utility jumpsuit, sturdy black boots, and a small pack strapped to his waist, empty for now, but soon to hold any supplies he manages to grab. I added an extra layer to your boots, Portia says quietly. They're reinforced against heat and cold. That's all I could do for you. Haymitch nods, appreciating the effort. He has no illusions about the Capitals game. Tributes are meant to fight and die, and outside help is minimal at best. A peacekeeper enters, signaling that it's time. Portia hesitates before touching his arm lightly. Good luck, Haymitch. He steps onto the metal platform, his heart hammering. The countdown begins. 10 seconds. 9, 8. His fists clench at his sides. 7, 6. The platform starts to rise, sending him up through a narrow tube. 5, 4. His breath quickens. 3, 2. The light above him grows blinding. 1. Haymitch emerges into the arena. Blazing sunlight floods his vision, forcing him to squint as he takes in his surroundings. The arena is vast, an open landscape dominated by rolling hills covered in knee-high golden grass. A dense forest borders the far edge, dark and foreboding. To his left, a massive rocky outcrop juts into the sky, casting a long shadow over the field. To his right, a deep ravine cuts through the land, its depths shrouded in mist. At the center of it all stands the cornucopia, gleaming gold in the sun, filled with supplies, weapons, and the means of survival. Surrounding it, the tributes stand on their individual platforms, spread out in a perfect circle. The air is thick with tension as each tribute assesses the situation, eyes darting toward the supplies, and more importantly, toward each other. A single sound breaks the silence, the piercing blare of the game's starting horn. Chaos erupts instantly. Some tributes sprint toward the cornucopia, while others turn and flee into the wild. Haymitch hesitates for a fraction of a second before making his decision. He isn't the fastest or the strongest, but he's quick enough to grab something if he moves smartly. He dashes forward, his eyes scanning the supplies for something useful that won't get him killed in the first 10 seconds. Screams ring out around him as the bloodbath begins. A boy from District 4 goes down first, an axe buried in his chest. Another tribute, a girl from District 9, is cut down by a blade before she can reach the weapons. Haymitch sidesteps a fallen body, reaching for a backpack near the edge of the supply pile. He grabs it just as a shadow looms behind him. He whirls, instinct taking over. A District 2 boy, broad-shouldered and armed with a spear, lunges at him. Haymitch barely manages to twist away, the spear slicing through the air where he stood moments before. He ducks low, snatching a small knife from the ground before scrambling back. The boy grins, thinking he has an easy kill. Then Macely appears. She moves fast, striking the boy in the side with a sharp jab from a broken metal pole. He stumbles, giving Haymitch the opening he needs. He doesn't hesitate, he slashes with his knife, cutting across the boy's arm. A yell of pain follows, but Haymitch is already moving, sprinting away from the cornucopia with his backpack clutched tight. Maisily follows, the two of them running in tandem toward the forest. Behind them, the massacre continues. The careers, tributes from the richer districts, trained for this moment, claim the best weapons and begin hunting down anyone still near the cornucopia. By the time Haymitch reaches the tree line, his lungs burn from the exertion. Maisily is right beside him, breathing hard but alive. They stop for only a second, looking back. More than a dozen bodies litter the ground. The anthem will confirm the dead tonight, but the count has already begun. They don't speak, only exchange a quick glance before pressing deeper into the woods. For now, survival is the only thing that matters. Haymitch doesn't know how long he'll last in the arena. But he knows one thing: he isn't going down without a fight. The forest stretches before Haymitch and Maisily, thick with gnarled trees and dense undergrowth. The sound of distant screams and clashing weapons fades behind them as they push deeper into the wilderness, their breathing ragged from the frantic sprint away from the bloodbath. The scent of earth and damp leaves fills Haymitch's nostrils, a stark contrast to the sterile capital air they had been breathing for days. Neither of them speaks at first. They move in tense silence, their ears straining for any sign of pursuit. The careers could be following them, and without weapons beyond Haymitch's small knife and Maisily's makeshift metal pole, they're vulnerable. Every snap of a twig, every rustle in the leaves, sends a jolt of adrenaline through them. After several minutes, they slow their pace, allowing themselves a brief moment to assess their situation. Haymitch grips the straps of his backpack, glancing at Maisily. "We need to check what we've got." She nods, her expression still guarded. The alliance between them is unspoken, but understood. For now, survival depends on cooperation. They crouch behind a fallen log, their backs against the rough bark, and begin sorting through their packs. Haymitch unzips his bag and finds a tightly packed bundle of supplies, a plastic water bottle, half full but precious nonetheless, a tightly wrapped protein bar, and a coil of thin but sturdy rope. Maisily's pack holds similar essentials, along with a folded plastic poncho. It's not much, but it's enough to keep them going for now. "The water's the most important," Maisily mutters, turning the bottle in her hands. "If we don't find a source soon, we're in trouble." Haymitch nods. He's seen past games. Dehydration is a slow, agonizing death, and the capital loves dragging it out for entertainment. "Then we find water first," he says, "and we keep moving. We're too close to the cornucopia. If the careers are coming, we don't want to be here when they do." Maisily hesitates, glancing around the forest. And after that, he exhales sharply, rubbing the back of his neck. "One step at a time, water first, then we figure out what's next." They move cautiously, keeping low and avoiding open spaces. The sun filters through the canopy in slanted beams, casting long shadows across the forest floor. It's quiet, too quiet. The absence of birds or insects makes the air feel unnatural, a sign that the game makers have likely manipulated the environment to their liking. Haymitch keeps his knife at the ready, every muscle in his body coiled for action. As they navigate through the trees, they come across signs of life or death. A few hundred yards ahead, the body of a tribute lies sprawled in the underbrush, motionless. Haymitch stops abruptly, his stomach tightening. The dead tribute is a younger boy, maybe 13, with a deep wound across his chest. His backpack sits beside him, untouched. Macely exhales sharply. Should we? We have to, Hamish says, his voice tight. We don't have a choice. They move quickly, keeping their eyes and ears alert for any sign of approaching tributes. Hamish crouches next to the body, avoiding the lifeless face, and unzips the bag. Inside, he finds a small container of dried meat, a single canteen of water, and a box of matches. Jackpot. He grabs the supplies, stuffing them into his own bag before standing. Macely watches, her expression unreadable. This doesn't feel right, she murmurs. Nothing about this is right, Hamish says. But if we don't take it, someone else will. They leave the body behind, pushing further into the trees. As the afternoon wears on, the temperature rises, beads of sweat forming along Hamish's brow. The weight of the packs is manageable, but every step feels heavier with the knowledge that death could be lurking behind any tree. They reach a rocky clearing near the edge of a ravine, and that's when they hear it, the unmistakable sound of water. Macely's head snaps up, eyes widening. That's a stream. They break into a run, following the sound until they reach a narrow but steady flow of water cutting through the forest floor. Relief washes over Hamish as he drops to his knees, filling the empty canteen. This will do for now, he mutters. But we can't stay here long. Macely drinks deeply before nodding. Agreed. But just as they begin to move again, a rustling sound echoes from the trees, a low snap of a branch. Someone is watching them. Hamish exchanges a glance with Macely, both of them frozen. He grips his knife tightly, his heart pounding in his ears. The games have only just begun, and already death is closing in. Hamish tightens his grip on the knife, his pulse hammering in his ears. The rustling grows louder, shifting through the underbrush just beyond their line of sight. Macely's breathing is shallow, her knuckles white around the metal pole she holds. They don't speak, they don't need to. The decision is already made. They will not go down without a fight. The silence stretches, thick and suffocating. Then, a figure emerges from the foliage, a girl small and quick, with wary eyes darting between them. She's younger than they are, probably from one of the weaker districts. Her clothes are torn, her arms scratched from running through the woods. Her hands are empty, trembling at her sides. She's alone. For a moment, none of them move. The girl's chest rises and falls in rapid breaths, but she doesn't run. She doesn't attack. She just stands there, looking at them like she's trying to decide if they're predators or something else entirely. Macely is the first to break the silence. Are you following us? Her voice is level, but there's an edge to it. The girl shakes her head quickly. No, I was just looking for water. Her voice is hoarse, probably from thirst. She eyes the stream, her muscles tensed, as if expecting them to deny her access. Hamish glances at Macely. It would be easy to drive her away, maybe even take her out while they have the advantage. But something about the girl, the way she stands, the sheer desperation in her expression, makes him hesitate. He exhales sharply, stepping back from the water. Drink, then go. The girl doesn't waste time. She drops to her knees and plunges her hands into the cool stream, gulping down mouthfuls of water. Her shoulders sag slightly, relief washing over her. Macely watches her carefully, the tension in her posture never fully relaxing. What's your name? Macely asks. The girl wipes her mouth with the back of her hand, glancing between them. She seems uncertain about whether to answer, but finally mutters, Violet. Where's your partner? Hamish asks. The girl is too young to be alone. If she had an ally, they'd be close by. Violet's gaze drops to the ground. Dead. That single word is heavy. It's a reminder of how quickly this game can take people out, how fragile alliances and life itself are in the arena. Haymitch exchanges a look with Macely. They don't owe Violet anything. Keeping her around is a risk, but at the same time, turning her away feels like signing her death sentence. And if there's one thing Haymitch despises more than anything, it's playing into the Capital's cruelty. "You know how to fight?" he asks. Violet hesitates before nodding. "I'm fast. I can track. I don't need much food." That's not an answer, not really, but it's something. Macely sighs, rolling her shoulders. "Fine, but if you slow us down, we leave you behind." Violet nods quickly, as if she expected nothing less. Haymitch isn't sure if they just made a smart decision or a fatal mistake. With their new companion in tow, they move deeper into the forest, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and the cornucopia. The trees grow denser, their twisted branches forming a canopy that dims the light. Every step is calculated, every breath measured. The sun starts to dip lower in the sky, painting the horizon with streaks of red and gold. Haymitch knows they need to find shelter soon. The nights in the arena are unpredictable, and if the game makers decide to send in mutts or a cold snap, they'll be vulnerable. After nearly an hour of walking, they find a large tree with thick, sprawling limbs. It's sturdy enough to climb, with a dense cluster of leaves that could offer some cover. "This'll do for now," Haymitch says, testing the lowest branch. It holds firm under his weight. "We sleep in shifts. One of us stays awake to keep watch." Violet glances up at the tree, her expression doubtful. "I've never climbed before," Macely groans. "Of course not." But she doesn't argue. Instead, she kneels, lacing her fingers together to offer Violet a boost. With some effort, they manage to get her onto the first branch, and from there, she scrambles up like her life depends on it, because it does. Once they're all settled, Haymitch leans against the trunk, his knife still in hand. The world around them grows darker, the sounds of the forest shifting with the change in time. Distantly, a cannon fires. Another tribute gone. No one speaks. They just sit in silence, listening to the echoes of death, waiting for morning to come. The night stretches on, thick with the hum of insects and the occasional distant howl of something unnatural. Something released by the game makers to remind them all that they are not safe. Not now. Not ever. Haymitch keeps his back against the tree trunk, his knife firm in his grip, scanning the darkness for movement. Macely is curled up a few branches above, arms crossed tightly over her chest, as if bracing herself against a cold that isn't entirely there. Violet shifts in her sleep, her breaths shallow but steady. Then, without warning, the anthem plays. The sky above them glows with the faces of the fallen. Haymitch counts 1, 2, 3, 4 more tributes gone. 24 entered the arena. The numbers are dwindling fast. Soon, it will no longer be about avoiding threats. Soon, the real fight will begin. When the anthem fades and the sky darkens again, Haymitch sighs, rubbing his forehead. His head still throbs from the earlier fight at the cornucopia, but the pain is a dull, distant thing now, something he's learned to push past. What matters more is making it through another day. He nudges Macely with the hilt of his knife. She jolts awake, eyes wild for a second before she registers where she is. He gestures toward the trees. "Your turn to keep watch." She nods groggily, stretching before settling into his spot. Haymitch exhales, leans his head back, and closes his eyes. Sleep doesn't come easily. It never does in a place like this. But exhaustion eventually pulls him under. By the time morning comes, the air is thick with humidity. The leaves slick with moisture from the early morning mist. Haymitch shifts, stretching out his sore limbs as he adjusts to the dim light filtering through the branches. Violet is already awake, clinging to the tree like a bird perched on a branch. Maisily looks down at them, expression tight. "We need to move," she says. She's right. Staying in one place too long is an invitation for trouble, and they all know it. Haymitch swings down from the tree first, landing softly on the damp earth. The forest around them is eerily quiet. It's too early for the game makers to be pulling their usual tricks, which means something is waiting for them just beyond their line of sight. They move quickly, weaving through the trees, staying low and silent. Haymitch keeps a hand near his knife, scanning the undergrowth for any sign of movement. Violet follows close behind, her eyes wide with alertness. Then they hear it. A rustling sound, not the wind, not an animal. Maisily gestures for them to stop, pressing herself against a thick tree trunk, her grip tightening on her makeshift spear. Haymitch crouches low, motioning for Violet to do the same. They wait. The rustling grows louder, and then a figure emerges, a boy, tall and broad-shouldered, his expression hard as stone. He isn't alone. Another tribute, a girl with sharp eyes and a bow slung over her shoulder, steps out beside him. Careers. Haymitch knows them immediately. He's seen them in the training center, the way they carried themselves with confidence, the way they flaunted their strength. They come from districts that train for this, where winning is expected, not just hoped for. The boy grins, adjusting his grip on the thick blade in his hand. Looks like we found ourselves a little group. Haymitch doesn't wait for them to make the first move. He lunges, going for the boy's exposed side, his knife flashing in the dim light. But the career is fast. He sidesteps, swinging his blade toward Haymitch's head. Haymitch barely ducks in time, feeling the rush of air as the weapon slices past. Maisily moves, jabbing her spear forward, forcing the girl to jump back. But the career with the bow recovers quickly, knocking an arrow and releasing it in one smooth motion. Violet screams. The arrow buries itself in her arm, just below the shoulder. She stumbles, clutching the wound, blood soaking through the fabric of her shirt. Haymitch doesn't hesitate. He pivots, driving his knife into the boy's thigh. The career roars in pain, staggering back, but he doesn't go down. Instead, he swings wildly, catching Haymitch in the ribs. The impact sends him reeling, pain exploding through his side. Maisily seizes the moment of distraction, driving her spear forward. The tip buries itself deep into the boy's chest. His eyes widen, shock flickering across his face before he collapses, his body hitting the ground with a dull thud. The girl with the bow doesn't wait. She turns and bolts, disappearing into the trees before they can react. Haymitch gasps, pressing a hand to his side, feeling the warmth of his own blood seeping through his shirt. Maisily kneels beside Violet, trying to assess the arrow wound. "We need to get out of here," she says, her voice tense. "Now." Haymitch grits his teeth and forces himself to move. They don't have time to think. Not when the sound of a cannon rings out, signaling another death. Not when the game makers will surely send something after them soon. They grab what supplies they can from the fallen career, then vanish into the trees once more, the weight of survival pressing heavier on them than ever before. The cannon's echo fades into the dense, humid air, but the weight of its meaning lingers. Another tribute is dead. The careers are down one, but that doesn't mean they're gone. The girl with the bow escaped, and if she's smart, she'll regroup with the others. Haymitch doesn't know how many of them are left, but he does know one thing: they need to move. Maisily grips Violet's arm, inspecting the arrow wound. Blood drips down in slow, steady rivulets, soaking into the fabric of her shirt. Violet clenches her jaw, trying not to make a sound, but the pain is evident in the way her fingers tremble. Haymitch crouches beside them, scanning the trees for movement. Nothing yet, but that doesn't mean they're safe. "We need to take it out," Maisily mutters. Violet shakes her head sharply. "Not yet. It's keeping the wound from bleeding too much." Haymitch exhales, wiping sweat from his forehead. The air is thick, suffocating, and every breath feels like it's carrying the scent of blood. They don't have time to argue. "Then we find somewhere to rest," he says. "We're sitting ducks out here." Maisily nods, and they help Violet to her feet. The girl wobbles, but manages to keep herself upright, her face pale from pain and blood loss. Haymitch takes the lead, moving swiftly through the undergrowth, his knife held tight in one hand. The arena has begun to feel smaller. The further they go, the more familiar everything looks: the same gnarled trees, the same patches of damp, moss-covered ground. The game makers are manipulating the space, forcing them towards something. And then they hear it. A distant rumbling. Haymitch stops short, raising a hand to signal the others. The ground beneath them vibrates slightly, almost imperceptibly. But it's real. It's coming closer. "Run," he hisses. They don't hesitate. They bolt through the trees, their feet pounding against the forest floor, breath coming in ragged gasps. The rumbling grows louder, a deep, earth-shaking roar that feels like it's coming from everywhere at once. And then they see it. A wall of wind and debris, churning through the trees like a monstrous, invisible hand sweeping everything aside. The game makers have sent a storm. Branches snap like brittle bones as the wind howls through the trees, tearing leaves from their branches and hurling them through the air like knives. The force of it slams into Haymitch's back, nearly knocking him off his feet. He grabs Violet's arm, dragging her forward as the storm closes in. Maisily screams something, but the wind swallows her voice. The sky darkens, and then the rain comes, sheets of it, hammering against them so hard it stings. They need shelter. Now. Through the chaos, Haymitch spots a cave, half hidden behind a cluster of rocks. He shouts, pointing, and they stumble toward it, barely making it inside before the full force of the storm crashes against the world outside. The darkness inside the cave is absolute. The wind howls at the entrance, but they are safe. For now. Haymitch sags against the wall, his breath coming in short gasps. His ribs ache from the earlier fight, and his entire body feels like it's been beaten raw. Violet sinks to the ground, clutching her arm, her face contorted in pain. Maisily kneels beside her, hands shaking as she inspects the wound again. "We have to take it out," she says. "Now." Haymitch watches as Maisily pulls out the arrow in one quick, brutal motion. Violet screams, her body jerking violently before she goes limp. Maisily presses a wad of cloth against the wound, her hands slick with blood. "Hold this," she says, her voice tight. Haymitch moves, pressing the cloth down as hard as he dares, while Maisily digs through her pack for something, anything, to stop the bleeding. Minutes pass like hours. The storm rages outside, and Violet's breathing is shallow, but steady. Eventually, Maisily ties a strip of cloth tightly around the wound, securing it as best she can. "She's lost a lot of blood," she mutters. "She needs rest." Haymitch nods, his mind racing. The storm won't last forever, and when it's gone, the careers will be waiting. They always are. The storm dies sometime in the early hours of the morning, leaving behind a world that feels eerily silent. Water drips from the trees in steady rhythms, and the ground outside the cave is slick with mud. The air is thick with the scent of wet earth and broken foliage, and every so often, a distant crack echoes through the arena as weakened branches collapse under their own weight. But beneath all of that, there is something else, a tension in the air, an expectation. The game makers have set the board, and now they are waiting for the tributes to play their part. Haymitch wakes first, stiff from the cold stone beneath him, every muscle aching. He shifts carefully, listening to the even sound of Maisily's breathing and the more labored, shallow breaths from Violet. She's still alive. That's something. Outside, the world is gray with early morning light, mist curling low to the ground like a living thing. It's quiet, too quiet. Haymitch knows better than to trust the calm. They can't stay here. Maisily stirs beside him, rubbing at her eyes. She looks exhausted, her usually sharp gaze dulled by exhaustion. "How's Violet?" she murmurs. Haymitch glances over. The girl is still pale, but the makeshift bandage is holding, the fabric dark with dried blood. She's breathing, but she won't be able to keep up if they have to move fast. And they will. "We have to go," Haymitch says. Maisily nods, already understanding. Together, they wake Violet, supporting her as she struggles to sit up. She grits her teeth against the pain, sweat beading on her forehead. "I can walk," she mutters before either of them can say anything. Haymitch doesn't argue. Instead, he moves to the mouth of the cave, scanning the forest. No movement. But that doesn't mean anything. The careers could be anywhere, or worse, the game makers could have something else planned. They move carefully, sticking close to the trees, keeping their footsteps light. The storm has changed the landscape, knocking down trees, creating new hazards. Deep puddles of water dot the ground, some of them deceptively deep, remnants of the game maker's latest game. They make it maybe a mile before Haymitch hears it. The faintest rustling, a shift in the leaves that doesn't match the wind. He doesn't hesitate. "Down," he hisses. Maisily drops immediately, pulling Violet with her, and Haymitch follows a second later, pressing himself into the damp earth. They wait, every breath held. Then, a shape moves through the trees. At first, it's just a flicker of motion, a shadow against the mist. Then another. Haymitch counts 3 figures, moving cautiously, weapons drawn, not careers, not the brutal confidence, the surety of overwhelming strength. These tributes move carefully, their eyes sharp, their bodies tensed for a fight. And then one of them speaks. "We know you're there." The voice is quiet, but firm. A girl steps forward, bow held at her side, arrow nocked but not yet aimed. Her eyes sweep the undergrowth, calculating. "You can come out, or we can force you out." Haymitch curses under his breath. Maisily glances at him, then at Violet, who is in no condition to fight. They don't have many options. Slowly, Haymitch stands, hands slightly raised, his knife still at his side but not gripped aggressively. Maisily follows, helping Violet up beside her. The girl with the bow watches them, her expression unreadable. She's young, probably no older than Maisily, but There's a sharpness in her eyes that tells Hamish she won't hesitate to shoot if she has to. The other two step closer. One is a boy, tall and lean, carrying a spear. The other is a smaller girl with a set of knives at her belt. All of them look exhausted. "We're not looking for a fight," Hamish says carefully. The girl tilts her head. "Neither are we," she says. "But that doesn't mean we trust you." Macely crosses her arms. "You approached us." The girl shrugs. "Because we had to make a choice. Either we pick you as allies, or we assume you're enemies and deal with you accordingly." There's a silence, thick with tension. Hamish weighs the options. A bigger group means better chances against the careers, but it also means more people to watch his back against. Trust in the arena is a gamble. But then Violet sways slightly, and Macely catches her before she can collapse completely. The girl with the bow notices. Her gaze flickers to the blood-stained bandage, and something shifts in her expression. "Come with us," she says. "We have supplies." Hamish glances at Macely. She nods. They follow. Hamish moves cautiously, his steps careful as he follows the three new tributes through the tangled remains of the storm-wrecked forest. The ground is slick beneath his feet, the mud sucking at his boots with every step. The air is thick with humidity, and the scent of damp earth clings to everything. Violet stumbles slightly beside him, her breathing uneven. But Macely tightens her grip on the girl's arm, keeping her steady. The leader of this new group, the girl with the bow, moves ahead of them with practiced ease. She hasn't given her name yet, but she walks with a confidence that tells Hamish she's used to leading. The other two Cirrus, the boy with the spear, and Lena, the girl with the knives, move in near silence, keeping their distance, watching closely. It takes nearly half an hour before they reach the small clearing that serves as their camp. A few makeshift shelters are arranged beneath the thickest trees, and the remnants of a fire, long since extinguished, sit in the center. There's a small cache of supplies, packs, water containers, and most importantly, food. Hamish's stomach clenches at the sight of it. The girl with the bow turns to face them, her expression unreadable. "We can help with your friend," she says, nodding toward Violet. "But we need to be clear about something first." Hamish folds his arms, waiting. "We don't trust you yet," she continues. "We've survived this long by being careful. If we're going to work together, we need to know you won't turn on us the second things get bad." Macely lifts her chin. "If we wanted to kill you, we would have tried already." The girl considers this for a moment, then nods. "Fair enough." Lena moves forward, kneeling beside Violet, her sharp eyes assessing the wound. "You're lucky," she mutters, untying the soaked, makeshift bandage. Violet winces but doesn't make a sound. "If this had been deeper, you'd be dead by now." "We have medicine," Cirrus adds. "Not much, but enough." Hamish watches closely as Lena pulls a small tin from one of the supply bags. She opens it to reveal a thick salve, something that smells faintly herbal. Carefully, she spreads a thin layer over Violet's wound before wrapping it in fresh cloth. "This should help with infection," Lena says. "But she needs rest." Macely sighs. "That's going to be a problem." Hamish agrees. Resting too long makes them vulnerable. The careers have been quiet since the storm, but they won't stay that way. They'll be regrouping, planning. And now that the number of tributes has dwindled, the game makers will be pushing them closer together, forcing conflict. The girl with the bow, who finally introduces herself as Lyra, settles beside the fire pit, rubbing at her temple. "The careers are still out there," she says. And after the storm, they'll be looking for supplies. If we stay here, it won't be long before they find us. Haymitch nods. We need to move before that happens. Cirrus exhales, running a hand through his damp hair. We should go toward the cliffs, he suggests. There's better high ground there. We can see them coming. Lyra frowns. And if they corner us, then we make sure they don't. Haymitch watches the conversation unfold, taking note of the way they interact. Lyra and Cirrus have been working together for a while, long enough to trust each other, even if they don't always agree. Lena is quieter, calculating, but she doesn't argue. Maiseli stays close to Violet, listening, assessing. It's a risk, teaming up with them. But at this point, there aren't many options left. They set out at midday, moving quickly but carefully, keeping to the trees where the shadows offer some protection. The arena feels different now, quieter, heavier. The air itself seems charged, as if the game makers are waiting, watching, preparing their next move. As they climb higher into the cliffs, the terrain becomes rougher. Jagged rocks jut out from the ground, and loose gravel shifts beneath their feet. Haymitch helps Maiseli support Violet when the incline gets too steep, his muscles burning with the effort. They've just reached a narrow ledge when they hear it. A distant scream. It echoes through the arena, sharp and sudden. Then silence. Haymitch stiffens. He recognizes that kind of sound. Someone just died. Lyra grips her bow tighter, her knuckles turning white. We need to move. They push forward, reaching a plateau where the ground levels out slightly. From here, they can see more of the arena, a vast stretch of forest below, the winding river cutting through it like a silver scar. In the distance, smoke rises in thin tendrils. The careers. Haymitch watches the smoke, calculating. They've set up camp, he mutters, probably drying off, getting ready for whatever comes next. Lyra nods. Which means we don't have much time. Cirrus tightens his grip on his spear. We need to hit them before they come for us. There's a moment of silence as everyone considers what that means. A direct attack is dangerous, but if they wait, the careers will come for them first, and they might not get another chance. Maiseli looks at Haymitch. We don't have to do this. Haymitch exhales slowly. No, they don't. But the way things are going, they won't survive much longer if they don't make a move. He turns back to the group. If we're going to do this, we need a plan, Lyra nods. Then let's make one. The night air is thick with tension as Haymitch crouches behind a boulder, his breathing steady despite the adrenaline pumping through his veins. The others are in position, Lyra with her bow drawn, Cirrus gripping his spear, Lena shifting the weight of her knives between her fingers. Maiseli and Violet stay back, hidden in the shadows, ready to run if things go south. The careers' camp is just ahead, illuminated by the flickering light of a dying fire. Their supplies are stacked neatly against a large rock formation, weapons within easy reach. The careers themselves are scattered, two of them keeping watch while the others sleep. It's the perfect opportunity. Haymitch signals to Lyra, who knocks an arrow, drawing it back with precise control. A heartbeat later, she lets it fly. The arrow whistles through the air and finds its mark, a direct hit to the shoulder of one of the guards. He lets out a sharp cry, stumbling backward. The other career snaps to attention, raising his sword, but before he can react, Cirrus charges forward, spear aimed for the kill. Chaos erupts. Haymitch sprints forward, grabbing a fallen weapon, a short blade, still slick with blood from past fights. He swings without hesitation, forcing a blonde-haired career back as Lena darts past him. her knives flashing in the firelight. The sleeping careers are awake now, scrambling to their feet, but the surprise attack has given them the advantage. Maisily and Violet remain at a distance, but Maisily readies a slingshot, picking up small, sharp stones from the ground. Haymitch barely dodges a wild swing from the blonde-haired career, his body twisting just in time. He retaliates quickly, aiming a kick at his opponent's knee. The career stumbles, and Haymitch takes the opening, slashing his blade across the boy's arm. Blood splatters onto the dirt. Lyra looses another arrow, narrowly missing one of the careers who dives for cover behind a rock. Lena moves in fast, striking from the side, her knife sinking deep into his ribs. The career gasps, his body jerking before he collapses. The remaining careers are now on the defensive, their numbers dwindling. But they're not going down without a fight. One of them, a tall, muscular boy, lunges at Cirrus, knocking him to the ground. Cirrus struggles beneath him, the career's hands wrapped around his throat. Haymitch doesn't think. He moves on instinct, grabbing a heavy rock and slamming it against the career's head. The boy grunts, stunned, and Cirrus takes the opening, driving his spear into the boy's chest. The fight is over in minutes. Silence falls over the battlefield, interrupted only by heavy breathing and the distant hum of the arena's force field. The remaining careers are dead. Their supplies, food, weapons, medicine, are now Haymitch's to take. He exchanges a glance with Maisily. Neither of them says anything, but the weight of what they've just done lingers between them. Lyra pulls an arrow from one of the bodies, wiping the blood off on her sleeve. "We need to move," she says. "The game makers won't let us sit here for long." She's right. The moment the Capitol realizes they've gained the upper hand, they'll change the game. Violet leans against a rock, still weak from her injury but alert. "Where do we go?" Haymitch scans the arena, his mind racing. The cliffs offer high ground, but they're too exposed. The river is an option, but if the game makers flood it again, they'll be trapped. "We split up," he finally says. "Two groups, make it harder for them to pick us off." Lyra hesitates, but she nods. "I'll take Cirrus and Lena. We'll head toward the eastern ridge." Haymitch turns to Maisily and Violet. "We'll move west." There's a quiet understanding between them now. Alliances in the arena are temporary, but for now, they're still alive. As they gather supplies and prepare to leave, the anthem plays overhead. The faces of the fallen appear in the sky, 4 careers, plus 2 others who must have died elsewhere in the arena. Only a handful of tributes remain. The end is coming, and Haymitch knows that only one of them will make it out. The alliance between Haymitch, Maisily, and their new companions, Lyra, Cirrus, and Lena, had been a calculated risk, but it had paid off. Together, they had managed to eliminate the careers, securing valuable supplies and a temporary sense of safety. However, in the arena of the Hunger Games, safety is always an illusion. As the group gathered the spoils of their recent battle, the reality of their situation loomed over them. The game makers would not allow them to remain united for long. The audience craved drama, betrayal, and bloodshed. The very structure of the games was designed to turn allies into enemies. Haymitch, ever perceptive, recognized the shifting dynamics. The camaraderie that had bound them was fraying under the weight of the Capitol's expectations. Trust was a luxury they could no longer afford. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the arena, Haymitch made a decision. Gathering the group around the dwindling campfire, he spoke with a gravity that silenced the murmurs of the forest. "We've done well together," he began, his voice steady. "But we all knew this couldn't last. The Capitol wants a show, and they'll do whatever it takes to get it. If we don't act on our terms, they'll force our hand. Lyra nodded, her expression somber. You're right. We've become too comfortable. It's only a matter of time before they push us into a corner. Macely glanced at Hamish, a mixture of understanding and sorrow in her eyes. So, what do we do? Hamish took a deep breath. We split up. Tonight. It gives each of us a fighting chance. We know the terrain, we have supplies, and we've learned from each other. It's the best option we have. The group fell into a heavy silence, each member grappling with the reality of the situation. Alliances in the Hunger Games were always temporary, but acknowledging the end was no less painful. One by one, they gathered their belongings, sharing brief, poignant farewells. Promises were made, silent vows to remember each other, to honor the time they had shared. As the night deepened, they went their separate ways, disappearing into the vast expanse of the arena. Hamish moved with purpose, his mind sharp despite the emotional weight of the evening. He headed toward the area he had scouted earlier, a cliff that marked the edge of the arena. The terrain was treacherous, but it offered strategic advantages. From this vantage point, he could observe movements below, and more importantly, he had discovered something unusual, a force field that bordered the cliff's edge. He had stumbled upon it by accident, noticing how objects thrown over the edge would inexplicably reappear, bouncing back as if repelled by an invisible barrier. It was a dangerous anomaly, but in the deadly calculus of the Hunger Games, it was also an opportunity. As days turned into nights, the number of tributes dwindled. The anthem played each evening, projecting the faces of the fallen into the sky. Hamish watched as familiar faces faded into the stars, a grim reminder of the stakes. One evening, as he sat perched near the cliff's edge, the anthem revealed only two faces, his own and that of the formidable female tribute from District 1. A career trained from birth for this moment. The final confrontation was inevitable. The next day, as the sun reached its zenith, casting harsh light over the arena, Hamish heard the telltale signs of approach, footsteps, deliberate and unhurried. He stood, turning to face his opponent. She was tall, her physique honed to perfection, eyes cold and calculating. In her hand, she wielded a gleaming axe, its blade catching the sunlight. "It's just us now," she called out, her voice echoing against the cliffside. "No more running." Hamish tightened his grip on his knife, positioning himself with the cliff at his back. "Seems that way," she advanced, each step measured. "You know, you put up a good fight, better than I expected from a District 12 rat." He smirked, masking his nerves with bravado. "And you're just as charming as I imagined a career would be." Without another word, she lunged, swinging the axe with lethal precision. Hamish dodged, the blade slicing through the air inches from his face. He countered with his knife, aiming for her side, but she deflected the blow effortlessly. The dance of death continued, both combatants trading blows, neither gaining a clear advantage. Hamish's mind raced, calculating his next move. He couldn't overpower her, she was stronger, her training more extensive. But he had something she didn't, knowledge of the arena's secret. Feigning exhaustion, he staggered closer to the cliff's edge, drawing her in. She saw her opportunity, raising the axe for a final strike. As she brought it down, Hamish sidestepped, the momentum carrying her forward. With a swift motion, he slashed at her leg, causing her to stumble. Enraged, she hurled the axe directly at him. Anticipating this, Hamish dropped to the ground. The axe sailed over him, striking the force field. With a resounding thud, it rebounded, the blade embedding itself into her skull. The arena's oppressive silence is shattered by the echoing cannon blast, signaling the death of the final tribute. Hamish Abernathy, bloodied and battered, stands alone at the cliff's edge. The force field's residual hum, a stark reminder of his perilous victory. The Capitol's hovercraft descends, its metallic claws retrieving the lifeless body of the District 1 girl, her own axe having sealed her fate. As the craft approaches Hamish, his vision blurs, darkness encroaching as exhaustion and injury take their toll. Awakening in a sterile Capitol infirmary, Hamish is greeted by the antiseptic scent and the distant murmur of medical equipment. His body, though mended by advanced Capitol technology, aches with the phantom pains of the arena's trials. The victory, while granting him life, feels hollow amidst the memories of fallen allies and the blood he was forced to shed. The subsequent days are a whirlwind of ceremonies and interviews, the Capitol parading their newest victor as a symbol of their unyielding control. Hamish, draped in opulent garments, faces the Capitol audience with a facade of gratitude, masking the simmering resentment beneath. Each smile he offers is a calculated move, every word a tightrope walk between compliance and defiance. During an exclusive interview with Caesar Flickerman, the charismatic host probes into Hamish's unprecedented use of the arena's force field. "Tell us, Hamish," Caesar begins, his tone dripping with feigned curiosity. "What inspired you to employ such an unorthodox strategy?" Hamish's mind races, aware that his response could seal his fate. With a nonchalant shrug, he replies, "Desperation makes you creative, Caesar. I figured if the Capitol provided the arena, might as well use every part of it." The audience erupts in laughter, but behind the mirth, Hamish senses the Capitol's unease. His maneuver had exposed a flaw in their meticulously crafted spectacle, a slight they would neither forgive nor forget. Upon returning to District 12, the familiar scent of coal and the sight of soot-streaked faces offer a bittersweet comfort. The victory tour, intended to celebrate his triumph, becomes a haunting journey as he revisits the families of fallen tributes, their hollow eyes reflecting his own survivor's guilt. Each handshake and forced smile deepens the chasm of remorse within him. The true cost of his defiance manifests brutally. Within weeks, Hamish's mother, younger brother, and his beloved Lenore are found dead under suspicious circumstances. The message is clear. The Capitol does not tolerate those who make them appear foolish. The weight of their deaths crushes Hamish, driving him into the numbing embrace of alcohol, his days blurring into a haze of grief and self-loathing. As years pass, the scars of the 50th Hunger Games remain etched in Hamish's psyche. Each reaping forces him to relive his trauma, the faces of chosen tributes merging with those of his lost family. Mentoring becomes a cruel cycle of hope and despair, as he watches over children he knows are doomed, his guidance a flimsy shield against the Capitol's orchestrated slaughter. The bottle becomes his constant companion, a desperate attempt to drown the memories that claw at his sanity. Yet, beneath the veneer of the town drunk, lies a mind keenly aware of the Capitol's machinations, a spirit not entirely crushed, waiting for the ember of rebellion to ignite. In the quiet moments between stupor and sleep, Hamish reflects on the force field's hum, the echo of Lenore's laughter, and the fleeting taste of victory tainted by unimaginable loss. His story, a testament to the Capitol's cruelty, becomes a silent beacon of resistance, a reminder that even in the darkest arenas, defiance can spark a revolution. As the sun rises over District 12, casting long shadows over the seam, Hamish Abernathy stands as a fractured symbol of survival, his journey a poignant prelude to the rebellion that simmers beneath Panem's fragile peace.